Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life that feels uncomfortable, almost cold, yet strangely liberating. It is the moment you realize a simple truth. Nobody is coming to save you, nobody is constantly watching you, and nobody is as invested in your life as you are. At first, this realization can feel heavy. It may even feel lonely. But if you sit with it long enough, you will discover that this truth is not a burden. It is freedom. When you accept that nobody cares as much as you think they do, something powerful happens. You stop performing. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never truly listening. You stop shrinking to fit into expectations that were never designed for your growth. And in that space, your real life begins. Most people spend years trapped in an invisible cage built from imagined judgment. They hesitate to start, afraid of criticism. They fear failure because others might see. They delay their dreams, waiting for approval that never arrives. But here is the wisdoms. The spotlight you fear is not even on you. Everyone else is busy worrying about their own lives, their own insecurities, their own struggles. The audience you imagined was never there. This is not a sad realization. It is an empowering one, because if nobody is truly watching, you are free to try, free to fail, free to learn, free to grow without the weight of imagined eyes judging every step. Emotional intelligence begins here, in understanding that your feelings about being judged often come from within, not from reality. When you release the need for constant validation, your emotional world becomes quieter, steadier, and more under your control. Self-mastery is born in this quiet space. Discipline becomes easier when you are not doing things for praise. Growth becomes deeper when it is not fueled by applause. Character strengthens when choices are made based on values, not visibility. When nobody cares whether you wake up early, whether you train your mind, whether you improve your habits, and you still do it anyway, that is power. That is self-leadership. Acceptance of this truth also transforms how you handle rejection. If someone misunderstands you, overlooks you, or doubts you, it no longer shakes your foundation. Why? Because your identity is no longer built on their recognition. You understand that people see the world through the lens of their own experiences and limitations. Their reaction is information, not definition. Calm replaces anxiety. Focus replaces comparison. You stop asking, "What will people think?" and start asking, "What is the right thing for me to do?" That question leads to purpose. And purpose is never loud. It does not demand attention. It does not beg for approval. It is quiet, steady, and deeply personal. It guides your actions whether anyone notices or not. There is also great peace in knowing that your mistakes are not being replayed in the minds of others. The embarrassment you carry for years is often forgotten by others within minutes. This understanding allows you to take healthy risks. You become more creative, more courageous, more willing to step into the unknown. Growth accelerates because fear of embarrassment loses its grip. Paradoxically, when you stop trying to be seen, you become more authentic, and authenticity is what truly draws meaningful connections. When you no longer chase attention, your presence becomes calmer, your words more grounded, your actions more intentional. People trust those who are not trying to impress them. This mindset also strengthens resilience. Life will still challenge you. You will still face setbacks, delays, and unexpected obstacles. But when you are not living for applause, failure does not feel like humiliation. It feels like feedback. It becomes part of the process, not a verdict on your worth. Understanding that nobody cares in the way you once feared does not make life empty. It makes it honest. It places responsibility back into your hands. It reminds you that your time, your energy, and your potential are too valuable to be spent managing perceptions. You begin to live with quiet confidence, not because the world is watching, but because you are aligned with yourself. Emotional independence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Many people confuse it with isolation, coldness, or the refusal to connect with others. In reality, It is none of those things. Emotional independence is the ability to remain steady within yourself, regardless of who praises you, who criticizes you, who stays, and who leaves. It is the quiet power of knowing that while relationships, recognition, and appreciation are meaningful, they are not the foundation of your worth. When you stop relying on external validation to feel valuable, everything about the way you live begins to change. From an early age, most of us are conditioned to seek approval. As children, we look to parents and teachers for reassurance that we are doing well. As we grow older, that need often shifts toward friends, colleagues, and society at large. We start measuring our value by how much we are liked, how often we are praised, and how widely we are accepted. Without realizing it, we hand over control of our emotional state to people who are not equipped to carry that responsibility. Their moods, opinions, and reactions begin to shape how we see ourselves. This is where emotional dependence quietly takes root. If someone compliments us, we feel worthy. If someone ignores us, we feel small. If someone criticizes us, we question our abilities. Our inner stability becomes tied to outer responses. The problem is not that we enjoy encouragement or appreciation. That is human. The problem is when we need it to feel okay. Emotional independence begins the moment you recognize this pattern and decide to reclaim ownership of your inner world. You start to understand that other people's opinions are reflections of their perspectives, not definitions of your identity. This awareness does not make you arrogant, it makes you grounded. You no longer rise too high with praise or fall too low with criticism. You learn to receive feedback without letting it control your sense of self. This shift brings a profound sense of freedom. Imagine working toward a goal not because others will applaud you, but because it aligns with your values. Imagine improving yourself not for admiration, but for self-respect. When your motivation comes from within, it becomes more stable and more sustainable. External validation is unpredictable. Some days you receive it, other days you do not. If your drive depends on it, your effort will always rise and fall. But when your drive comes from internal standards, consistency becomes natural. Emotional independence also strengthens resilience. Life includes rejection, misunderstanding, and loss. No one is exempt. If you're emotional well-being depends entirely on how others treat you, these experiences can feel devastating. But when you are emotionally independent, you still feel the pain. You are human, after all, yet you are not destroyed by it. You understand that someone's inability to see your value does not erase your value. You can grieve, learn, and move forward without losing your sense of self. This inner stability changes the way you approach relationships as well. Paradoxically, when you do not need others to complete you, you connect with them in healthier ways. You are no longer seeking constant reassurance or approval. You are not trying to shift into whatever version of yourself you think will be accepted. Instead, you show up as you are. This authenticity creates deeper, more honest connections. People feel more at ease around someone who is not silently asking, "Do you like me? Am I enough?" Emotional independence also improves emotional intelligence. You become more aware of your feelings without being controlled by them. You learn to pause between an external event and your internal reaction. Someone's harsh words may still sting, but instead of immediately spiraling into self-doubt, you observe your response. You ask yourself whether their opinion is informed, whether it aligns with your values, and whether it deserves influence over your self-image. This pause is powerful. It transforms reaction into reflection. Another important aspect of emotional independence is learning to self-soothe. Instead of looking outward every time you feel insecure, anxious, or discouraged, you develop the ability to comfort yourself with perspective, patience, and self-compassion. You remind yourself of your efforts, your growth, and your intentions. You become your own source of reassurance. This does not mean you never seek support from others. It means support becomes a supplement, not a necessity. When you reach this level of inner steadiness, fear of judgment begins to lose its grip. Many people hold back their ideas, their creativity, and their true personalities because they worry about what others might think. But when your emotional state is no longer controlled by approval, you gain courage. You are more willing to speak honestly, try new things, and take meaningful risks. Even if others misunderstand you, you remain anchored in your own understanding of who you are and what you stand for. This is where true confidence is born. Not the loud, attention-seeking kind, but the quiet confidence that does not need to announce itself. It is visible in the way you carry yourself, in the calmness of your decisions, and in the steadiness of your reactions. You do not chase every opportunity to prove yourself because you are no longer trying to earn a sense of worth. You act from a place of already knowing you are enough, while still striving to grow. Emotional independence also brings clarity. When you are not constantly trying to meet everyone's expectations, you can hear your own inner voice more clearly. You begin to ask deeper questions. What actually matters to me? What kind of life feels meaningful to me, not just impressive to others? These questions guide you toward purpose. Your decisions become less about image and more about alignment. Of course, developing emotional independence is not a one-time event. It is a practice. There will still be moments when criticism hurts more than you expected, or when rejection triggers old insecurities. The difference is that you now recognize what is happening. Instead of being swept away by the emotion, you return to your center. You remind yourself that feelings are temporary, but your values and identity are deeper and more stable. Over time, this practice reshapes your entire experience of life. You waste less energy trying to manage how others see you and invest more energy in becoming someone you respect. You stop performing and start living. You stop chasing validation and start building character. You stop fearing disapproval and start acting with integrity. In the end, emotional independence is not about detaching from the world. It is about engaging with the world from a place of inner strength rather than inner need. It allows you to love without clinging, to work without constant praise, and to grow without waiting for permission. It is the foundation of self-mastery because it places responsibility for your emotional state back where it belongs, within you. And when that happens, you realize something powerful. The less you depend on others to define your worth, the more peacefully and purposefully you are able to live. Self-mastery begins at the point where the need for approval ends. This is a truth that many people sense but few fully embrace, because the desire to be accepted runs deep within human nature. From childhood, we are trained to look outward for signals that we are doing well. A smile from a parent, a good grade from a teacher, praise from a coach. These moments shape our early understanding of success and belonging. Over time, however, what once helped us learn can quietly become a dependency that limits our growth. When your actions are driven primarily by approval, your direction in life becomes unstable. You adjust your behavior based on what will gain praise or avoid criticism. You say yes when you mean no. You silence opinions that might cause disagreement. You choose paths that look impressive rather than ones that feel meaningful. Without realizing it, you hand over control of your decisions to the shifting preferences of others. This is the opposite of self-mastery. Self-mastery requires an internal standard. It asks you to act based on principles, not applause. It demands that you develop the ability to guide your own behavior even when no one is encouraging you, noticing you, or rewarding you. This is not easy. In fact, it is one of the most challenging transitions a person can make, because it forces you to confront the discomfort of standing alone in your choices. The end of approval seeking does not mean you become indifferent to others. It means you stop making their reactions the foundation of your identity. You still listen, you still learn, and you still care, but you are no longer controlled. There is a difference between valuing feedback and needing validation. The first leads to growth, the second leads to dependency. When approval is your main fuel, your discipline is fragile. You work hard when people are watching, but your effort fades when attention disappears. You begin projects with enthusiasm when there is praise to be earned, but you lose motivation in the quiet middle stages where progress is slow and recognition is absent. This is why so many people struggle with consistency. Their drive is external, and external motivation is temporary. Self-mastery, by contrast, is built in private. It is forged in moments when there is no applause. When you wake up early to improve yourself and no one knows, that is self-mastery. When you choose patience over anger and no one congratulates you, that is self-mastery. When you keep a promise to yourself even though breaking it would be easier and unnoticed, that is self-mastery. These small, unseen decisions shape your character more than any public achievement ever could. Letting go of the need for approval also strengthens your decision-making. When you are overly concerned with what others think, your mind becomes noisy. Every choice is filtered through imagined reactions. Will they like this? What will they say? What if they disagree? This mental clutter creates hesitation and self-doubt. But when you release the need to be approved by everyone, your thinking becomes clearer. You start asking better questions. Is this aligned with my values? Does this move me toward the person I want to become? These questions lead to wiser, more grounded decisions. There is also courage on the other side of approval seeking. As long as you are trying to please everyone, you will avoid necessary risks. You will hesitate to pursue unconventional paths. You will hide parts of yourself that might not be universally accepted. But self-mastery requires honesty. It requires the bravery to be seen as you are, even if that means being misunderstood by some. When your self-worth is not tied to universal approval, you gain the freedom to act with integrity rather than image. This shift deeply affects how you handle failure. If your identity depends on being seen as capable or successful, mistakes feel threatening. You may avoid challenges simply to protect your image. But when you are no longer chasing approval, failure becomes information instead of humiliation. You can examine your mistakes with curiosity instead of shame. This mindset accelerates growth because you are no longer afraid to see where you need improvement. Self-mastery also transforms your emotional regulation. When you rely heavily on others' approval, your emotions fluctuate with their reactions. A compliment lifts you, a criticism ruins your day, your inner state becomes unpredictable. But when you build your identity on internal standards, your emotional life becomes more stable. You are still human. Praise feels good and criticism can sting, but neither controls you. You learn to observe your emotions without being ruled by them. Another powerful result of releasing approval seeking is the development of self-trust. Every time you act according to your values instead of external pressure, you strengthen your trust in yourself. You prove to yourself that you can make difficult decisions, stay consistent, and remain true to what matters. This self-trust becomes a foundation for confidence that does not depend on circumstances. It is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It is important to understand that this process is gradual. You do not wake up one day completely free from the desire for approval. Instead, you notice it more clearly. You catch yourself when you are about to change your opinion just to be liked. You pause before overcommitting just to avoid disappointing someone. In these moments, you gently choose alignment over approval. Each small choice strengthens your self-mastery. As this inner strength grows, your relationships improve as well. When you are not constantly trying to win approval, you communicate more honestly. You set clearer boundaries. You express disagreement with respect instead of suppressing it out of fear. People may not always agree with you, but they will sense your authenticity. And authentic relationships, even if fewer in number, are far more fulfilling than many shallow ones built on people-pleasing. Ultimately, self-mastery is about leadership, not of others, but of yourself. It means your values guide your actions more than your emotions. Your long-term vision guides your choices more than short-term comfort. And your inner compass guides your direction more than external noise. This level of inner leadership only becomes possible when the need for approval loosens its grip. When you no longer live for applause, your life becomes more intentional. You choose growth over image, integrity over popularity, and purpose over performance. You begin to understand that the most important audience in your life is your own conscience. When you can look at your decisions and know they align with who you truly want to be, a deep sense of peace follows. This is the quiet reward of self-mastery. It is not loud, and it is not always visible to others. But it shapes everything: your habits, your reactions, your relationships, and your direction in life. And it all begins at the moment you realize that approval is optional, but self-respect is essential. Rejection is one of the most powerful emotional experiences a human being can face. It touches something deep and ancient within us, something tied to our need for belonging and survival. For much of history, being excluded from the group meant danger. So it is no surprise that even today, a simple no, a missed opportunity, or a lack of response can stir feelings of inadequacy, embarrassment, or self-doubt. Yet, when you truly accept that nobody is watching your life as closely as you think, and that most people are absorbed in their own concerns, rejection begins to lose its sting. The pain of rejection is often amplified not by the event itself, but by the meaning we attach to it. When someone turns us down, overlooks us, or chooses another path, we tend to interpret it as a statement about our worth. We think, "I'm not good enough," "I don't measure up," or "there must be something wrong with me." In reality, rejection is usually about fit, timing, perspective, or circumstance. Factors that extend far beyond your personal value. When you internalize the belief that others' responses define you, every rejection feels like a verdict. But when you understand that people's decisions are shaped by their own preferences, fears, goals, and limitations, rejection becomes information rather than condemnation. It still may disappoint you, but it no longer destroys your sense of self. This shift begins with emotional awareness. Instead of immediately reacting to rejection with self-criticism, you pause and observe what you are feeling. Perhaps there is embarrassment, sadness, or frustration. These emotions are natural. Emotional intelligence does not require you to suppress them. It asks you to understand them. You allow yourself to feel the discomfort without turning it into a story about your inadequacy. One of the most liberating realizations is that rejection is a universal human experience. Every accomplished person, every confident individual, every respected leader has faced rejection, often repeatedly. The difference is not that they avoided it, but that they learned not to personalize it. They saw it as part of the process rather than proof of failure. When you accept that nobody is as focused on your missteps as you fear, another layer of pressure falls away. That job interview you did not get, that idea that was not accepted, that message that went unanswered. These moments feel huge in your mind, but in the broader world, they pass quickly. People move on, situations change, opportunities shift. Recognizing this reduces the sense of permanent damage that rejection can create. This perspective builds resilience. Instead of withdrawing after being turned away, you become more willing to try again. You understand that one no does not close every door. In fact, each rejection refines you. It teaches you where to adjust, where to improve, and where to redirect your energy. When you stop seeing rejection as an attack on your identity, you can use it as feedback for growth. Rejection also strengthens self-knowledge. Not every opportunity you lose is meant for you. Sometimes being turned away protects you from paths that would not align with your deeper values or long-term purpose. When you are not blinded by the need for acceptance, you can look at rejection with curiosity. You ask, was this truly right for me? Rather than assuming, I must not be enough. This mindset reduces comparison as well. Often, rejection hurts more because we compare ourselves to the person who was chosen instead. We measure our abilities, appearance, or achievements against theirs and feel inferior. But when you understand that different people are suited for different roles, comparison loses its power. Someone else's success does not diminish your potential. It simply reflects a different fit for that specific moment. Another important change happens in your willingness to take risks. Fear of rejection keeps many people from pursuing meaningful goals. They avoid applying, speaking up, sharing ideas, or expressing feelings because they want to avoid the pain of being turned down. But when rejection no longer feels like a threat to your worth, courage grows. You realize that the real loss is not in being rejected, but in never trying at all. This courage is closely tied to self-respect. When you value yourself independently of others' approval, you understand that being rejected does not reduce your dignity. You can approach opportunities with openness rather than desperation. If the answer is yes, you are grateful. If the answer is no, you remain whole. This inner steadiness makes you more confident and more attractive in both professional and personal settings. Rejection also teaches emotional balance. Life will not always go your way, and learning to navigate disappointment with grace is a key part of maturity. Instead of reacting with bitterness or self-pity, you learn to respond with reflection. You ask what can be learned, what can be improved, and what should be released. This balanced response protects your peace and keeps you moving forward. Over time, you begin to see rejection as redirection. A closed door often guides you toward a more suitable one. Many people look back on past rejections with gratitude, realizing that what they once wanted so badly would have limited them. At the time, the pain felt sharp. Later, the wisdom becomes clear. Accepting that you cannot control every outcome, but you can control your response, is a powerful step towards self-mastery. There is also humility in learning to handle rejection well. It reminds you that you are always growing, always learning, never finished. This humility keeps you open to improvement without falling into self-rejection. You can acknowledge areas where you need to grow without labeling yourself as a failure. This balance between confidence and humility is a hallmark of emotional intelligence. Perhaps most importantly, when rejection loses its sting, your life expands. You become more expressive, more adventurous, more willing to connect. You no longer hold back your voice out of fear that it might not be welcomed. You no longer hide your ambitions to avoid the possibility of being turned down. You step forward more fully, knowing that even if you stumble, you will not lose yourself. In the end, rejection is not a measure of your worth, but a part of your journey. It is a filter, a teacher, and sometimes a protector. When you stop giving it the power to define you, it becomes lighter, more manageable, and less frightening. You still feel it, but you are not controlled by it. And in that freedom, you discover a deeper strength, the strength to keep showing up, to keep trying, and to keep believing in your path, even when others do not immediately see it. Clarity is one of the greatest gifts that comes from releasing the constant need for other people's opinions. When your mind is crowded with thoughts about how you are being perceived, what others might say, or whether your choices will be approved, your inner voice becomes difficult to hear. Doubt grows louder than intuition. Fear speaks more often than wisdom. But when you truly accept that most people are too busy with their own lives to analyze yours, a quiet space opens inside you. In that space, clarity begins to form. Confusion often does not come from a lack of intelligence or ability. It comes from divided attention. Part of you wants to follow what feels meaningful, while another part worries about how that choice will look to others. You stand at a crossroads, not because you lack direction, but because you are trying to walk two paths at once, the path of purpose and the path of approval. As long as approval holds equal power, decisions remain tangled. When you stop prioritizing opinions that are not rooted in your values, decision-making becomes simpler. This does not mean every choice is easy, but it becomes more straightforward. Instead of asking, what will impress people? You begin asking, what aligns with who I want to become? That single shift filters out a tremendous amount of noise. Options that once seemed attractive because of status, praise, or comparison lose their appeal if they do not match your deeper goals. Clarity also grows when you are no longer trying to manage every possible judgment. The human mind has limited energy. When it is constantly rehearsing imagined conversations, defending itself against hypothetical criticism, or replaying past interactions, very little energy remains for creative thinking or long-term planning. Letting go of the need to control how you are seen frees mental space. Your thoughts become more organized, your priorities more defined. This mental freedom strengthens emotional intelligence. You begin to notice the difference between a decision driven by fear and one guided by intention. Fear-based decisions often carry urgency and tension. They are reactive, focused on avoiding discomfort or disapproval. Intention-based decisions feel calmer, even when they are challenging. They come from a place of alignment rather than avoidance. When your mind is not clouded by constant concern over perception, you can feel this difference more clearly. Another important aspect of clarity is understanding what truly matters to you. Many people inherit goals from society, family, or culture without questioning whether those goals fit their authentic selves. They chase titles, possessions, or recognition, only to feel empty when they achieve them. This happens because the pursuit was shaped by external expectations, not internal truth. When you release the pressure to meet everyone's standards, you gain the freedom to examine your own. You begin to ask deeper questions. What kind of work gives me a sense of contribution? What kind of relationships make me feel understood and supported? What daily habits bring me peace rather than just productivity? These questions lead to a life designed with intention rather than imitation. Clarity is not just about knowing what to do. It is about knowing why you are doing it. Letting go of constant comparison also sharpens your focus. When you are preoccupied with how you measure up to others, your attention is scattered. You look sideways instead of forward. You adjust your pace based on someone else's timeline. But clarity grows when you recognize that your path is unique. You stop competing in races that were never meant for you. You direct your energy towards steady progress in your own direction. This clarity reduces regret as well. When your choices are guided by your values rather than social pressure, you are less likely to look back and feel that you lived someone else's life. Even if outcomes are not perfect, you can respect your decisions because they were honest. There is peace in knowing you acted with integrity, even when the results were uncertain. Clarity also improves boundaries. When you are unsure of your priorities, it is easy to overcommit. You say yes to requests that drain you, attend events that do not matter to you, and take on responsibilities that pull you away from your goals. But when you are clear about what deserves your time and energy, saying no becomes easier. Not from arrogance, but from understanding. You know that every yes to something unimportant is a no to something meaningful. As this clarity strengthens, your communication changes. You express your thoughts more directly because you understand them better yourself. You are less defensive because your identity is not built on fragile approval. You can explain your choices calmly without needing everyone to agree. This steadiness often earns more respect than constant people-pleasing ever could. Clarity also brings patience. When you know where you are headed, you are less shaken by temporary delays or detours. You understand that not every moment needs to feel dramatic or impressive. Progress can be quiet and still be real. This patience protects you from impulsive decisions driven by the desire for quick validation. You become more willing to invest in long-term growth rather than short-term applause. Importantly, clarity does not remove uncertainty from life. There will always be unknowns. But it gives you a stable center from which to face them. Instead of being lost in endless second guessing, you move forward with thoughtful confidence. You accept that you cannot control every outcome, but you can control the intention behind your actions. Over time, this clarity shapes your sense of purpose. Purpose is not a single dramatic revelation. It is a pattern of choices that align with your values. When you are no longer distracted by every outside opinion, you can see this pattern more clearly. You notice what consistently brings meaning, what consistently drains you, and what consistently helps you grow. These observations guide you toward a life that feels cohesive rather than scattered. In the end, clarity is the natural result of inner alignment. When your decisions are guided more by self-awareness than social pressure, your mind becomes calmer and your direction more defined. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. The noise of imagined judgment fades, and in its place comes a quiet, steady understanding of who you are and where you are going. That understanding changes everything, because once you see your path clearly, you can walk it with confidence, even if no one else fully understands it yet. Resilience is often described as the ability to bounce back from difficulty, but in truth it is something deeper and more steady than a simple recovery. It is the quiet strength that allows you to endure challenges without losing your sense of direction or identity. When you truly accept that you are not performing for an audience and that most people are too occupied with their own lives to closely track your struggles, resilience becomes less of an effort and more of a natural state of being. Much of the emotional weight people carry during hard times does not come only from the difficulty itself, but from the added pressure of being seen struggling. There is a hidden fear that others will judge your setbacks, interpret your delays as incompetence, or see your mistakes as permanent flaws. This fear can make challenges feel heavier than they actually are. You are not only dealing with the obstacle, you are also trying to manage your image at the same time. When you let go of the belief that everyone is watching and evaluating your every move, that extra weight begins to fall away. A setback becomes simply a setback, not a public failure. A mistake becomes part of learning, not a source of humiliation. This shift in perspective makes it easier to stay steady when things go wrong, because you are no longer fighting two battles at once: the external challenge and the internal fear of judgment. Resilience grows when you stop taking difficulties personally. Life includes delays, disappointments, and unexpected turns that have little to do with your worth or ability. Sometimes timing is off. Sometimes circumstances change. Sometimes outcomes are influenced by factors beyond your control. When you understand this, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" in a way that assumes you are being singled out. Instead, you begin to ask, "How can I respond to this in a way that helps me grow?" This question shifts your role from victim to participant. You may not have chosen the situation, but you can choose your response. That choice is the heart of resilience. It reminds you that even when you cannot control events, you still have agency over your attitude, effort, and direction. This sense of agency builds confidence over time. Each time you navigate a difficulty without collapsing emotionally, you prove to yourself that you are capable of handling more than you once believed. Accepting that you are not the center of everyone's attention also reduces the fear of temporary failure. Many people avoid risks because they worry about the embarrassment of not succeeding. But when you understand that most people quickly move on with their own concerns, failure loses its dramatic intensity. It becomes a moment, not a label. This freedom encourages you to keep trying, and repeated effort is one of the strongest builders of resilience. Resilience is also strengthened by emotional regulation. When you are overly concerned with how others perceive your struggles, emotions can become overwhelming. You might feel shame, anxiety, or defensiveness layered on top of the original difficulty. But when you are grounded in your own perspective, you can experience emotions without being controlled by them. You allow yourself to feel disappointment or frustration, yet you do not let those feelings dictate your next move. This balance is a key part of emotional intelligence. It means acknowledging your emotions honestly while still choosing responses aligned with your values. You might say to yourself, "This is hard, and I feel discouraged." But you also remind yourself, "I can take one small step forward." That small step, repeated over time, builds a deep and durable form of resilience. Another important aspect of resilience is patience. When you are not trying to impress anyone with rapid success, you become more willing to endure slow progress. You understand that growth is rarely dramatic or immediate. There are seasons of visible advancement and seasons of quiet preparation. Without the pressure to constantly appear successful, you can accept these slower phases without panic. You trust that consistent effort, even when unnoticed, is shaping you in meaningful ways. Resilience also benefits from self-compassion. If you believe that every mistake will be judged harshly by others, you may begin judging yourself just as harshly. This self-criticism drains your energy and makes recovery harder. But when you release the need to maintain a flawless image, you can treat yourself with more understanding. You recognize that being human includes imperfection. This gentler inner dialogue helps you recover more quickly and return to your path with renewed focus. Letting go of constant comparison also strengthens resilience. When you measure your struggles against someone else's highlights, your own challenges can feel unfair or uniquely heavy. But when you remember that everyone faces unseen difficulties, comparison loses its power. You stop asking why your journey looks different and start focusing on how to move forward from where you are. This grounded focus is far more productive than resentment or envy. Resilience is closely tied to purpose as well. When your efforts are connected to something meaningful, you can endure discomfort with greater patience. Accepting that you are not living for applause allows you to stay committed, even when progress is invisible. You are not discouraged by a lack of recognition because your motivation is internal. You know why you are continuing, and that reason is enough to sustain you through hard phases. Over time, each challenge you face and work through becomes part of your inner foundation. You begin to trust your ability to survive emotional storms. You remember past moments when you felt overwhelmed, yet still found a way through. These memories become evidence of your strength. The next time difficulty appears, you do not immediately panic. You think, "I have handled hard things before. I can handle this too." This quiet confidence is one of the greatest rewards of resilience. It is not loud or dramatic. It does not seek attention. It simply gives you steadiness. You are less shaken by sudden problems and less discouraged by temporary setbacks. You understand that life moves in cycles and no season, good or bad, lasts forever. In the end, resilience becomes natural when you stop living as if every struggle is being judged. You stop performing strength and start building it. You stop hiding your difficulties and start learning from them. Without the added burden of managing appearances, your energy is directed toward growth instead of image. And as this inner strength deepens, you move through life with a calm determination. Challenges still come, but they no longer define you. They shape you, teach you, and strengthen you, and you continue forward, steady and unbroken, guided not by the fear of being seen fall, but by the quiet confidence that you can rise again. Authenticity begins where performance ends. For much of life, people unconsciously adjust themselves to fit expectations. They shape their words to be more acceptable, hide opinions that might cause disagreement, and present polished versions of themselves to avoid judgment. Over time, this habit of performing becomes so normal that many forget what it feels like to simply be themselves without calculation. Yet, when you truly accept that most people are not watching you as closely as you think, and that their approval is neither constant nor guaranteed, the pressure to perform begins to fade. In its place, authenticity quietly emerges. The desire to be liked is natural. Human beings are social and connection matters. But problems arise when being liked becomes more important than being honest. When this happens, you start making decisions based on what will gain acceptance rather than what reflects your true thoughts and values. You might agree outwardly while disagreeing inwardly. You might pursue goals that look impressive but feel empty. This inner conflict creates tension because the person you present to the world does not fully match the person you are inside. Authenticity resolves this tension. It is the alignment between your inner world and your outer actions. It does not mean sharing every thought impulsively or ignoring social awareness. Rather, it means your choices are guided by your genuine values instead of a constant effort to manage perception. When you no longer feel responsible for controlling how everyone sees you, you gain the freedom to express yourself more honestly and live more sincerely. One of the first signs of authenticity is comfort with imperfection. When you are performing, mistakes feel threatening because they disrupt the image you are trying to maintain. You may hide flaws, deny weaknesses, or avoid situations where you might not appear competent. But authenticity allows room for being human. You can admit when you do not know something. You can acknowledge when you are learning. This honesty builds trust, both with yourself and with others. Accepting that nobody is closely tracking your every move also reduces the fear of standing out. Many people suppress parts of their personality because they worry about being judged as strange, different, or unconventional. But when you realize that most people are too focused on their own concerns to analyze you deeply, the risk of being yourself feels smaller. You begin to share your ideas more openly, express your style more confidently, and explore interests without excessive self-consciousness. Authenticity strengthens self-respect. When your actions reflect your true beliefs, you feel more at peace internally. There is less guilt from pretending, less exhaustion from maintaining appearances, and less anxiety about being found out. You no longer carry the burden of constantly editing yourself. This inner relief often shows outwardly as calmness and quiet confidence. This shift also transforms relationships. When you present a filtered version of yourself, connections tend to remain shallow. People can only connect with the version you show, not the real you. This may bring approval, but it rarely brings deep understanding. Authenticity, on the other hand, invites genuine connection. When you speak honestly and act consistently with your values, the people who resonate with you will feel it. Not everyone will agree with you, but the connections you do form will be more meaningful and stable. Being authentic also improves communication. Instead of saying what you think others want to hear, you learn to express your thoughts clearly and respectfully. You set boundaries without excessive guilt. You say no when something does not align with your priorities. These actions might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you are used to pleasing others. But over time, they create healthier dynamics. Others learn to trust your words because they reflect your true position, not a temporary attempt to gain approval. Authenticity is deeply connected to emotional intelligence. It requires self-awareness, the ability to recognize your feelings, values, and motivations. It also requires self-regulation, the ability to express yourself thoughtfully rather than impulsively. When these skills work together, authenticity becomes balanced. You are honest without being harsh, open without oversharing, and confident without being dismissive of others. Letting go of constant comparison is another key part of authenticity. When you measure yourself against others too often, you may start adjusting your personality, goals, or lifestyle to match what seems more admired. But this leads you away from your natural inclinations. Authenticity grows when you accept that your path does not have to look like anyone else's. Your strengths, interests, and pace are uniquely yours. Honoring them brings a sense of rightness that imitation never can. There is also courage in authenticity. Not everyone will understand or approve of your choices when you stop performing for acceptance. Some may prefer the version of you that was easier to predict or more accommodating. But authenticity asks you to value alignment over universal approval. You understand that being respected for who you truly are is more fulfilling than being liked for who you pretend to be. This courage is supported by inner security. When your sense of worth comes from within rather than from others' reactions, disagreement becomes less threatening. You can listen to different perspectives without feeling the need to abandon your own. You can adapt when you learn something new without feeling that your identity is unstable. This flexibility, grounded in self-awareness, is a sign of mature authenticity. Authenticity also leads to more meaningful purpose. When you are no longer choosing paths to impress others, you are free to pursue what genuinely matters to you. Your work, hobbies, and goals begin to reflect your real interests and values. This alignment creates a deeper sense of fulfillment. Even if your path is less conventional or slower to gain recognition, it feels worthwhile because it is truly yours. Over time, living authentically reduces inner conflict. There is less mental energy spent wondering if you are being judged, less second guessing about whether you should have said something different, and less regret about pretending. You become more present, more focused, and more at ease with yourself. This inner harmony is one of the quiet rewards of authenticity. In the end, authenticity is not about being different for the sake of it. It is about being honest in a world that often encourages performance. It is about allowing your actions to reflect your true character rather than a carefully managed image. When you accept that you do not need to impress everyone, you gain the freedom to be real. And in that realness, you find deeper confidence, stronger connections, and a life that feels genuinely your own. Purpose becomes personal the moment you stop treating your life like a performance. As long as your choices are shaped primarily by how they will be received, your direction is never fully your own. You may achieve impressive things, earn recognition, and meet expectations, yet still feel a quiet emptiness because the path you followed was designed to be seen, not to be lived. When you accept that most people are not watching closely and that their attention is fleeting even when it does appear, you are free to turn inward and ask a more important question. What truly matters to me? This question is the beginning of personal purpose. It shifts your focus from external approval to internal alignment. Instead of chasing goals because they are admired, you begin exploring what feels meaningful, even if it is less visible. You realize that purpose is not something assigned by the crowd. It is discovered through self-awareness, reflection, and honest experience. For many people, the absence of constant external validation initially feels uncomfortable. Without applause or reassurance, they feel unsure whether they are on the right path. But this uncertainty is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you are learning to trust your own compass. When purpose becomes personal, your motivation changes. You act not because others are watching, but because the work itself feels worthwhile. This internal motivation is more stable than any praise. External recognition comes and goes. Trends shift. People's opinions change. If your purpose depends on attention, your direction will constantly fluctuate. But when your purpose is rooted in your values, it remains steady even when no one notices your efforts. You can continue building, learning, and contributing in quiet ways, confident that your actions have meaning beyond visibility. Personal purpose also brings patience. When you are trying to impress others, you often feel pressure to show quick results. You want progress that can be seen and measured immediately. But meaningful purpose rarely unfolds that way. It grows slowly through consistent effort, learning, and refinement. Without the need to display constant success, you become more willing to stay committed during phases when progress is subtle or invisible. This patience protects you from burnout. When your drive comes from proving yourself, you may push beyond healthy limits, constantly striving to maintain an image of success. But when your drive comes from purpose, you understand the importance of sustainability. You respect your energy, your well-being, and your need for balance, because you are not racing to meet someone else's expectations. You are building something that matters to you over the long term. Purpose that is personal also shapes your resilience. When difficulties arise, you are less likely to give up, because your motivation is not tied to immediate recognition. You are connected to a deeper reason for continuing. This reason may be your desire to grow, to serve, to create, or to live in alignment with your values. Whatever form it takes, it acts as an anchor during uncertain times. Another important aspect of personal purpose is responsibility. When you stop waiting for others to define success for you, you take ownership of your direction. You no longer blame circumstances or approval for your lack of movement. You recognize that while you cannot control everything, you can choose your response, your effort, and your focus. This sense of responsibility is empowering. It reminds you that your life is shaped more by your consistent choices than by others' opinions. As purpose becomes personal, comparison loses its grip. You understand that someone else's path does not determine yours. Their timeline, achievements, and recognition are part of their journey, not a measure of your worth. This frees you to move at a pace that suits your growth. You stop feeling behind or ahead and start feeling aligned. Alignment brings a quiet confidence that comparison never can. Personal purpose also deepens fulfillment. When your daily actions reflect what you truly value, even small tasks feel meaningful. You see how each step contributes to a larger picture that makes sense to you. This creates a sense of coherence in your life. Instead of feeling scattered or pulled in conflicting directions, you experience a growing sense of unity between who you are and what you do. This alignment influences your decisions in practical ways. You become more selective about how you spend your time and energy. You are less likely to commit to roles or activities that look impressive but feel empty. You prioritize what supports your growth and contribution, even if it is less glamorous. This discernment protects your focus and helps you build a life that feels intentional rather than accidental. Relationships also change when your purpose becomes personal. You seek connections that support mutual growth and understanding rather than just social approval. You are more comfortable being honest about your goals and boundaries, because you are not trying to fit into every environment. This attracts people who respect your direction and encourages healthier, more authentic interactions. Importantly, personal purpose does not require grand achievements. It is not defined by scale but by sincerity. For some, it may involve leadership or public impact. For others, it may be expressed through family, craft, learning, or service in quiet ways. What matters is not how many people see it, but how deeply it resonates with your values. When you accept that your life does not have to impress everyone, you give yourself permission to pursue what feels truly right. Over time, this way of living builds a deep sense of peace. You are no longer chasing every opportunity to prove your worth. You are no longer measuring your life by how it appears from the outside. Instead, you measure it by how honestly you are living from the inside. This shift reduces anxiety and increases satisfaction, because your sense of success is based on alignment rather than applause. In the end, when purpose becomes personal, your life stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like a journey of intention. You move with greater clarity, patience, and confidence. You are less distracted by fleeting opinions and more guided by lasting values. And even when your path is quiet, even when recognition is absent, you feel a steady sense of meaning because you know you are living in a way that is true to you.